let's talk about what a developer like Jason should do to move to Azure. He's obviously got a series of choices, but we're going to assume Jason should use app services. And to use app services, there is no managing infrastructure. It's very similar to development, to what he's used to. And all he needs to do is go through and create a new web app. He goes into Azure, clicks create a resource, choose web app, enters some details and clicks publish. So here's what it's like in the UI. He clicks on the left, create a resource, chooses web and mobile, web app, enters some details and then presses create. It will spin around for a minute and then you'll be done. And then you can click go to resource, which just comes back to the page. You click browse and you see what you just created. So this is an empty site in Azure. And at this point, this UI should probably say, go ahead and write your code. Okay, and we'll open up VS Code or Visual Studio and we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so
let's, we're going to create a new SPA application.
Yes.
So I need you to open up Visual Studio 2019.
Okay.
All right, so let's create a new project.
Okay.
And let's select an ASP.NET Core web application.
Yep.
And we want to call this Northwind Sydney V2.
V3.
V3. Let's do V3. And you don't have to change anything. Create new solution. Yes.
You want to put it together?
Yes. Let's put it together. Separate. Put them together.
Yep.
And click create.
Okay.
So now we need to choose our front-end technology. And I'm pretty sure Adam's a fan of Angular.
Yes.
Because it's red.
Yep.
And click create. All right, cool. So
that was pretty fast.
That was nice and quick, yeah. So the F5 experience should be fantastic. It's a template from Microsoft. It should just work out of the box.
So this is with the brand new Visual Studio 2019. It's a couple of days old. You can see it's much more attuned to developers. We've lost the title bar off the top. The menus have got a fair bit simpler. The extensions are all sitting by themselves. So you won't have extensions all over the joint, you'll have them here. And right now we have it downloading all the dependencies using npm. And as you know, this is not the most efficient process in the world, especially when you're on a slow connection. It can be kind of painful. But that's now going to pop open a browser. When we pop open the browser, you will see the basic Angular template done. We'll check what version we got. And hopefully, that experience was not too bad.
Yeah, it just works.
And then after this, we're going to have to deploy this off localhost into Azure, and we'll do that.
So almost there. We're just making sure now we've written our code. We're going to check our application. Should be happy, and then publish this to Azure.
To check the Angular version, you can try going view source, but you won't see it there. So you could just right-click here and go inspect. We'll have a look here, and you'll see what Angular version there is. Okay, and you can update that with the Angular CLI. All right, so that's the out-of-the-box experience. Now, Will, can you help me get that off localhost and onto Azure?
Of course, no problem. Okay, so the easiest way to publish your app from Visual Studio to Azure is to right-click the project and select Publish.
Sweet.
And we're going to reuse an existing app service that we've created in Azure.
You sure you don't want to use a VM?
I'm 100% sure I don't want to use a VM.
All right, cool.
So moving forward, I want to use app services.
An existing one?
Let's create an existing one.
Yep. Use an
existing one.
Done.
And we can choose some advanced options. We can choose whether we want to use release or debug code, but we're going to pretend this is a production app and we're going to use release code. So the next step is that we have to specify our subscription and the resource group where we want to deploy our application to. And as Adam's shown there, it's just selecting the existing app service that we have provisioned in Azure. And yeah, just click on it.
Where's my...
I think maybe you just click back and click on the name again. Might be a little glitch. There we go. Here we go. So you'll notice here on the screen of Visual Studio, it has the URL for your application. It'll be Northwind Sydney v2.azurewebsites.net. You can also manage your application settings from here, but I personally prefer just to use the Azure Portal myself. It's just sort of a nicer experience. In Visual Studio, it has to download all the app settings, you make a change and re-upload them. It just takes a little bit longer. All right, so I think we're just about ready. Here it's building the Angular application, and it's going to then deploy the code to Azure. And what else do we have here that we can change? All right, so just to point out, we have a .NET Core backend that's hosting our Angular client application. We can see on the right-hand side there is the client app folder, which is what it gets created through the SPA template for us. Oh, jumped up.
Could be in business.
Yes, here we go.
There we go. We just got it deployed to the right place. We've now built an Azure website or an app service, and we've created our code, and we've deployed it to the place. And you can imagine a beginner developer like, well, a serious developer like Jason, who's a beginner at Azure, can get up and running pretty easily without very much friction at all. We step back a few years and went through those same processes, there was a lot of manual steps involved. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it is very sweet. It's very much to point out some information is that it's just like developing locally, it's just you're deploying to the cloud rather than a local IIS server.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else you want to point out in here?
Oh, I was just going to point out before the app jumped up, we can see here our package.json and the Angular CLI configuration, just to prove this is an Angular app that we're deploying.
Sweet.
Sweet. So let's recap what we did.
So what Will got me to do was we decided to go into VS 2019, which we just downloaded. We selected ASP.NET Core, we chose Angular, could have chosen React or other ones, press publish, and that was essentially, if this is what it would have been the experience in your current 2017 environment, if you don't want to go on bleeding edge, beta versions, file, new project, choose .NET Core, choose ASP.NET Core, enter some details, press OK, and you had to, in the old days, make sure you were using Core. Now, it's defaulting to Core in 2019, as you just saw. And then you'd choose Angular or React, and we'll choose Angular, okay, and press OK, and it would go ahead and do it. And now the next steps are to publish. Now, Will got me to right-click on here and choose Publish. On the left-hand side, there's also Publish over there, so we could choose that. Click that, press Start, choose App Service, select Existing, press Publish, come through, choose the appropriate resource group, throw in that, press OK. It'll spin around for a little bit. Unfortunately, it doesn't have that beautiful big spinning thing, you know. Ben & Jerry's have beautiful big flavors inside, and that's why I like Ben & Jerry's. There we go. And we're done. And you can look down here and subtly see if there was any errors. In this case, there were no errors, it's all succeeded. And then you come up here and you click that link, and you would have your Angular code deployed to Azure, and you are in business. So, in summary, app services are super fast, they're very simple, any developer can use this stuff. You just go into Portal and create your web app. You then go in 2017 or 2019, create your Angular project and then deploy it. Any downsides? Anyone have any downsides? You all seem pretty happy. That's a good experience, right? Yes. Raji.
The second time you did, like you had a V3 project and you deployed on V2, does that mean it will delete all the files and deploy it from scratch?
So Raji's question is, I was seeing different version numbers, V2, V3, and then you deployed one to another. No, sorry, don't get confused by any of those Vs. I was just doing them again, and I had gone into Azure the first time and I'd called mine V2. Yeah. And then when I'd gone to the Visual Studio and I created one and then I created it again, I just called it V3. They had nothing. You actually have a responsibility to clean up your droppings after you've done stuff, because in Azure, they don't just sit on your hard drive, they sit on the cloud, and the more droppings you leave around, the more incremental costs you're going to have. And you'll be being charged, some cents every day, some dollars every day, depending on how many what configuration you got up and running. So you have a responsibility to be clean. All right, so, yes?
Can you show us how to clean?
Oh, can I show you how to clean?
Yeah.
Well, you want to, well,
Let's step you through
you
that.
don't have to clean your hard drive. It can be as messy as you want, depending on how your house is. But Azure, you do need to get rid of stuff. So that's probably not a bad idea.
It's a great idea. Okay, so let's go back to the Azure Portal, Adam.
Yes, there he is. Oh, sorry, wrong window.
Wrong window,
there.
yep.
Okay.
It's that one there.
Oh yes, I should clean my windows on my machine. That would be good, but it's not charging me anything.
Okay, let's go right to the beginning. Click on the resource group button on your far left. Yes. And so we've got Northwind Sydney there and Northwind Sydney V2. We actually want to get rid of the Northwind Sydney resource group.
Okay.
So we can click on that one. We can see these are some of the resources we created earlier. Now we actually can just click delete resource group, and that will delete all of the resources inside of this resource group.
Why are they making me enter Northwind Sydney? Why do you think they would be doing that, Callum?
I'd say to make sure you really want to delete it.
Yes. Yes, so my kid can't come to my machine and delete it.
So yeah, it's as simple as that. You type in the resource name to confirm, click OK, and now it'll start deleting the resource group. You should be able to see in the top of your screen, there's a little bell icon, and it is busy deleting the resource group. Yes, good question.
Here just remove the whole resource, but what about these deployments? Are they kind of saved as like artifacts or something? Can I like revert back to my previous version, for example?
Okay.
Like we just published V3, but it was V2 before. Does it have an artifact, recorded as artifact?
Okay, so the question is, if we're deleting this resource group, will it actually keep our artifacts that we've deployed to Azure so that we can later roll back? Yeah. And the answer is no. In this situation, we didn't actually deploy using a CI/CD pipeline. We definitely didn't use best practices. We just used a right-click publish from Visual Studio. That'll be up to you to maintain your artifacts in that process. But luckily, our next topic will be covering Azure DevOps.
So we were just talking about the downsides, and you have triggered us to think of something very good. So Jason is probably feeling very happy. That wasn't very hard to get on the cloud. He can go to his next sprint review and say, did all that. Actually, was able to manage to do that in 2 weeks. And you might walk past the boss, got everything up and running in Azure. I'm a bit of a cloud guru now. So I think you could say that is your Get Your Life Back award. It's pretty easy to use Azure. Donald Trump actually tweeted, I just made my first web app with Azure. Easy, all right? So it's pretty easy. Anyone can do it, all right?
2014.
Say again?
That was 2014.
That was 24. Oh, yes. Oh, he's worked out that I took one of Donald Trump's tweets and modified it. You are too good. Yes. But Azure was out in 2014. He might have done this back then. Yes. Anyway, so this guy comes and visits Jason and says, Jason. Jason. Now, do you know this guy? This guy, they exist in most companies. We have one of these dudes. And think of them like a .NET solution architect and a infrastructure guy, sysadmin. They like having power. They often use condescending voices when developers do dumb stuff, They like taking all permissions off developers so they can't get anything done. You know those type of guys. These guys, we don't call them sysadmins or application architects. They've given themselves a nice title, all right? And they've called themselves DevOps, Mr. DevOps. And all he's saying to Jason is, mate, you're doing it all wrong. What did you just do? And takes the wind right out of Jason's sails. And Jason was feeling so good about himself. All right, what's he upset about? Let's talk about DevOps. Mr. DevOps is really unhappy. He's saying, Jason, you've got no source control, you've got no continuous integration, no continuous delivery, no logging, no backlog. And Jason could say now, based on what we just did, actually I do have logging. I clicked that application insights. Yes, but anyway, the core of what Mr. DevOps is unhappy about is genuine. You can't just do that, show that in sprint 1 and say, yes, I got it deployed to the cloud. Okay, that right-click publish is not the right way to do it. So enter Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps, and we'll show you this project. It creates a Git repository, automated CI and CD. Just these steps of Jason trying to learn out how to make it build and how to make it do the next step and how to get it deploying to test and into staging and what it does with its artifacts, and now it should run the tests as well, and now we put in production. There's many days of work for Jason to learn how to do that, many days. If he's going to read lots of stuff and gets best practices, he can use easily a week. Logging and monitoring, there's a bit of work to set that up. And now he should have his product backlog started. You don't do work without having a backlog item. And he's got to have his development environment all configured right. So, in 4 steps. So, I want you to mention this stuff that I'm showing is free for small teams. And it's free for open source projects. I remember seeing an Atlassian site that looked a bit like this.
Yeah.
But yes, it's open source, it's free, small teams is free, and well, obviously, huge companies use this. Shell uses this. All Shell developers are on this. All right, so let's move along. Now, what I want you to do is every single thing that I've showed you up until now, I want you to forget. It was all the wrong way to do it. Do not do it that way, okay? That is non-reproducible. There will be steps that you will get wrong. Every time it'll be a different thing you get wrong. You need it to be automated. All right, so let's do it the right way.
Yes, so now let's create a new Azure DevOps project. And for this, we need to go back to the Azure Portal. And
Okay.
Yep, so if you just Alt-tab to your browser and go back to the previous tabs. I think you have it in a different window.
Okay.
That one, all right. So just like every other resource in Azure, to create one, you can go to the top left and click Create a Resource. And we just want to search for DevOps. And there we go. So we can now just find DevOps project in that list. Click. There we go. You can read the description of it, but we will show you what we can do with Azure DevOps.
I've never actually read all this. You know that? I should. Anyway, basically it says DevOps is really cool and use this project.
It is very cool. So yes, let's click Create. And so now we need to make a few decisions. We want to create a .NET application. And so we pick it from the list and click Next.
It's already picked, it's default.
Okay, well,
but I
click
could be a
Next.
Java developer and work, and you should be very aware that all this stuff works with completely non-Microsoft technologies
That's
now.
right.
Okay?
Azure DevOps is for everything.
So, next.
Yes, so now we have another choice, ASP.NET or ASP.NET Core.
We haven't done anything that's not .NET Core for ages,
Yeah.
so that's what you should choose. It's lighter weight, you can deploy it anywhere, it's faster, so you should be using it.
All right, and we don't need a database for this example, so we
Really?
leave that off and
What type
click
of solution doesn't need a database, Will? This one.
awesome one.
Okay.
All right, so now we got yet
Whoa,
another
this
huge
is
choice.
a change. This is not how, they've changed the default.
All right, so by default, you'd expect the default to be a Windows web app, wouldn't you?
Well, I didn't think it was going to be a Kubernetes cluster as a default for JSON.
I think they're trying to tell us something.
Right.
Go Kubernetes. But
Oh,
today,
right. That's okay. I'm a bit confused what's going on here. I would have thought they would have wanted the new developer to be up and running nice and easily, and that would be this. Or possibly web app for containers,
That's
because
right,
that
yeah.
would get you there quicker.
yeah. So the order of difficulty is not quite obvious here, but I think for us today, we actually want to use the Windows web app. This is what we're trying to build today.
Because we want the simplest.
Yeah, we're starting off simple.
Well, that's that.
Oh, we don't consider that an option
Okay,
anymore.
all right.
Let's not do VMs. All right.
Okay.
We want to do a Windows web app. So
I would say they should have like a crawl, walking and running,
Yeah.
because there's I'm not fully across why they would. Obviously, that's where you want to get to on proper scale applications, but I'm surprised they've changed the default.
yeah. Okay. So now we need to give a project a name. So let's call it Northwind Sydney DevOps.
Okay. What are all those errors?
I think you just need to change the organization first. So, yep.
Shouldn't they put
choose-
that first?
Yeah, I think they should put that first if it matters. So choose the last one, please.
Wizzy,
Yes.
that's your name?
That I can't change that one. That's from a long time ago. Teenage years choices, you know, they live with you forever. Right. We want to choose the MSDN subscription, and we want to make sure that we're actually deploying to Australia Southeast.
I want Sydney. Where's Sydney?
Sorry, yes, Australia East. Yeah, we're in Sydney today. Now, we need to just check, there's some additional options here.
Yep.
As we mentioned earlier, Azure DevOps is actually free for what we're doing. But in this instance, we will actually end up paying some money because by default, it selects the S1 app service plan. So that's a production tier app service plan, and that costs, I think, roughly $70 a month. So we're still going to choose the S1, but you're not actually paying for Azure DevOps, you're paying for the app service plan. Okay? So
even though you can go free, you're going to...
Yeah, we can go free, but it is a slower service.
Okay.
But, you know,
you want it to be fast for
we
to
always want to be fast today, yeah.
All right.
All right,
okay.
so, and then, again, just make sure it's in Australia East. Yep. And App Insights can also be in Australia East. Oh, that is App Insights.
Yeah, so
All
that's
right.
Australia East. Yep.
Sorry, misread that. Okay, so just press OK.
Okay.
Yep.
And we're done.
Now we're done. We can just click Done.
Everything's in Sydney.
So now we're going to get an Azure DevOps project created for us in the Azure Portal. We can see there's provisioning some resources. If Adam, you can just click on the little bell for us so we can monitor our deployment. So there should be a link popping up shortly.
And when we get this, we're going to have our backlog.
Yes.
We will have all the builds configured.
Correct.
Will we have our release configured?
Releases will be configured, yes.
Okay, so the release, we've typically for many years used Octopus, and Octopus is pretty cool. This is, it's obviously a bit cheaper than Octopus because it comes in the package, and it's kind of just all done. Octopus requires you to learn a bit of Octopus, but it has a beautiful UI. Most developers, unless they've got a lot of experience with Octopus, are really just happy just to have their releases automated and not spend too much time with that. Okay.
Yeah, definitely to automate your development and deployment process. You can save a lot of time, and the organisation you work for, it's a cost saving for them. So automation is key nowadays.
By the way that you can see this screen is doing stuff is really hard. You can subtly see that 53 is changing.
That's right.
You can see 3 dots barely there. You can see this. Like, why don't they give us Ben & Jerry's type spinning things,
It would be much more obvious.
Did you know that the guy from Ben & Jerry, have I got the right thing, in near New York, I've forgotten the town, near New York, but the guy from Ben & Jerry's actually is missing a lot of taste buds on his tongue. And that's why he wanted an ice cream that had huge pieces in it so he could taste those things, because he didn't believe in subtle.
That's
Yes.
a good way of thinking about it. Awesome. So we've got an Azure DevOps project created. You can go and click on Go to Resource.
Is it done?
It's done. Your deployment is complete.
Very subtle, that. I barely saw that little green tick. Did you see it? Wouldn't you like?
Yeah, it crept up on you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, well.
Awesome. No, so this is a beautiful page. This has got a lot of information for us. So it shows that we have a CI/CD pipeline available. It shows that we've got a master branch with a first commit. There's currently a build running. So we selected the .NET Core or the ASP.NET Core web application. That's currently being built. And shortly, that will start being deployed to a dev environment that Azure DevOps set up for us already. And
So I should say the CI/CD pipeline looks pretty done. It will kind of work. In real life, you're going to have to configure this to add production on it as well. Or
That's right.
You might have staging and stuff. Pretty good.
Yep. And so if we scroll down a little bit, we can see there's a link to our code repository.
Okay.
So just to point out, actually, this is interesting. That toolbar looks very similar to some of the VSTS UI.
Yes.
Not how currently Azure DevOps has the
So DevOps has
items on the
become
web.
cool. Repositories are now called repos. Okay. Maybe an Aussie got to rename that. Build pipelines, it's just pipelines now.
That's right.
Release and build are together. Azure backlogs, are they
Agile
called?
backlogs.
No, what are they called now?
In Azure
Agile
DevOps.
boards, aren't they?
In Azure DevOps, you have a choice to choose Scrum or Agile. And I think there's another one. I forget what it's called. Yeah, but you have the choice of choosing what style of backlog you want to use.
But this is like a cover on top of Azure DevOps. So
That's right.
Can't we
So-
just look at Azure DevOps?
We can, certainly. So you can click on the project homepage icon, yes.
Should I right click or just click?
Just click on it.
There's no right-click menu. What's going on here?
Yeah, they don't want you to right
Who
click.
changes the web around? oh, even when I click it, I get a new tab anyway. All right.
Yeah, so just click on Overview, far left.
Oh, by the way, they're called dashboards now. So,
They're dashboards, okay.
Oh, sorry, boards.
Boards?
Repos, pipelines.
Pipelines.
So they're boards. Anyway.
So again, we just click on the Overview tab right at the top, and this should show us about your project. So we can have some basic stats about the project here. So it shows the number of succeeded builds and the number of succeeded deployments. Over time, obviously, this is a stat you can use to rate the performance of your dev team. There's a whole bunch of additional little widgets and things that you can add here.
Where's my code?
Your code will be in the repos. So you can click on Commits. You can see Azure DevOps created one for us.
That's our Angular project, all done in one check-in. Nice. What else did it make for us?
What else did it make for us? If you go to Pipelines, you can click on Builds. And here you can see we've got the CI pipeline for our Northern Sydney DevOps project. It shows that the first commit is currently being built. And that little blue icon is the build in progress icon.
But where's like the build steps, the build definition stuff?
All right, to see that, see it changed to green, the build finished.
Oh.
But cool, we'll go look at that in a sec.
notice.
All right, so click on the edit button, Adam.
Yep. So
this now shows us, in a nice sort of visual way, all the tasks required to build our ASP.NET Core application. You can see that we choose Azure Repos Git for storing our code, keeping it under source control. There's many other options. This template just creates it in the Azure Repos, but when you create a new Azure DevOps from scratch, you can actually choose which repository or which source control technology to use. So we've got one agent job that has multiple tasks. So the way that the build process is executed for you in cloud is via a hosted build agent. So in the background, they spin up a VM that runs MS Build or .NET build for you, and all the output is piped into our UI here. So they're free for open source teams. You get a number of build minutes per month.
if you want to use it up quick, you can change these configurations.
That's right. But you are also given the option to host your own build agent. It's quite easy to set up through the portal, where you just download and install an agent on a local machine or on a VM, and then you can customize that VM as well with a few additional tools that you can then execute from these tasks.
For your information, that's how we do it here at SSW. We have some build servers here on premise, and so that's where that is done.
Yeah, so just the obvious benefit for us is that you can add additional caching to your build agents, so that every time they're executed, they don't need to download all the NuGet packages or NPM modules or node modules. They're kept on that machine for next time. If you're using the hosted build agent, you're not guaranteed to get the same VM from Azure. So it could be a brand new one and it has to re-download everything, which really sort of adds extra time to your builds. So we can see we've got a bunch of .NET Core steps to restore the NuGet packages, build, test, and publish the artifacts for our web application. And just to note there that we're copying the ARM templates as well into what we're calling the artifact, which is what we'll be using in the release pipeline to deploy to Azure.
And where is it copying?
Oh, so if you just click on the copy ARM templates item, so there's a folder called ARM templates in our source folder, which we don't actually show, but we can go there in a moment. And we just want to copy it to a target folder. As you can see, there's a Visual Studio Azure DevOps template variable called the staging directory. So we're going to copy this ARM template file into that folder. Okay, so I think we just need to quickly go to the repos, Adam.
Okay.
So just go up one step. Yep.
And commits?
So yeah, we can just look what we have right here.
Okay.
So this is the code for our ASP.NET Core application. We can also then see there's a separate folder called ARM templates. And inside of there is a JSON file describing the resources we want to create in Azure. So this is going to have our app service as well, and it has some parameters we can use to name our web app and the app service plan.
So for example, the name there, web app name, where is that name stored?
So these names are passed in as parameters when we deploy this template. So the way that we can actually customize this is through the release pipeline. So that's up next. So let's go to the pipelines tab.
Okay.
Yep. And click on releases. All right, so we can actually see that we have a release in progress. So you can click on that one, that release one.
How can you see it's in progress?
The very tiny spinning icon.
Is that spinning? That is not spinning. That is
Look
it's
closely.
taken subtle to only people with young, under 20 with great eyes can see that.
All right.
So go into the release.
Let's go into the release, yep. All right, so here's a nice UI showing our current release deployment to Azure.
And you will notice that this UI has got really good.
It has.
From where it started with a product called InRelease to this, you can see this team was heavily spurred on by Octopus, which has a beautiful UI. They've gone to quite some effort to make this good.
So you can see there actually says in progress.
Yeah, I don't want
So you might have to dig
read
deeper.
something, I want to see something.
Right. Okay, so what we can do for now is you can hover over that and click on the logs button. And this will show you all the steps. I might have to scroll up slightly for us, Adam. Go up, yep. So this goes through a few release steps, which we'll review shortly. But this shows you the current output that's being produced by the release pipeline. And so you can see there, it's downloaded our artifact that was created by the builds. It's deploying the Azure App Service. We also needed to install just the test platform so we can run some tests on our artifact, which it's currently doing. So this might take a little while. So in the meantime, what I'd like to do is if we go back to the releases, yep, we can actually just say if you click on the Northwind Sydney release, we want to be able to edit the release. Oh, actually, I think because you've zoomed in, the button is hidden. So if you click the ellipse for us, yes, click on edit. So this is a nice visual representation of our artifact that's available to us and the different stages of our deployment. So currently we've got a dev stage, and we can see there's 1 job and 4 tasks in there. So if I can get Adam to just open up the tasks for the dev stage. Yep, so just click on 1 job, 4 tasks. So I think that is quite a subtle little link. You have to click right on it. Yep.
So what did I click on? I clicked on the whole box.
Okay, so with the tasks here in our release pipeline, we have the Azure Resource Group deployment, or ARM deployment. So if Adam can click on that item for us, yep, click on the first one, and maybe just resize it a little bit for us. That's right. Okay. So it shows us the subscription which has been set up to deploy our application. So we can change it if we need to, but it's already set for us. The action is that we want to create our updated resource group. And the resource group name is Northwind Sydney DevOps. And again, we just, like everything else, it has to have a location. And if you can just stick there in the middle where you were, scroll down slightly, please. So we can actually select the ARM template that we want to deploy for this task. So if you click the ellipses on the far right, you can see now from our artifact that we selected, you can open up that drop folder. One more. I think, yeah, by default it puts one folder too deep. But we can choose the JSON file which describes the resources we want to deploy. You select that and click OK. And then if you scroll down a little.
You're changing this?
That was the same as it was from before. So I just showed you that you can select it. Then now we want to actually provide additional parameters to our template. And you can do that again by just clicking the ellipses on the side. So it's already had some pre-filled for us from the template. So you see here, we can specify our app name, the hosting plan name, app insights location, and the stock keeping unit, which is how you describe the tier for your app service plan. We won't change this right now. So we can just get Adam to close that. Okay. So now we should have, by now, got everything we need to deploy our application. But there should be one running. So if we just go back to releases and see...
Leave?
We can leave, yeah. We don't need to make any changes. All right, there's a green button. Our app from before has built, and now it's been released to Azure DevOps, to Azure. So if you click on that release 1, there we go. So we can see that it deployed successfully. And in this case, it had a bunch of tests that ran, and all of them passed. It was 100% indicator for tests. So from here, I think if you can click on the logs, you can see all the tasks succeeded. That's great. The one thing that is not very clear in here is a link to your application. That, in my opinion, is something that is sorely needed in Azure DevOps to show you where your apps were deployed to. But for now, we can actually go back to the Azure Portal, and we can go and find our application from here. So if you click on refresh, yep.
And what do you expect to change when
So we'll see on this screen, which hasn't updated yet, that our build has completed and that our application has been deployed. And then hopefully I think there should be a link pointing to it.
And our resources created as well?
That's the resources that we're looking for, yeah.
So there's our resources over here.
That's right. It will show that our app is running. It's got app insights there to show that we're monitoring our application. And what else can we show here? Oh yes, we show that the build has succeeded. We ran our tests. Everything's looking pretty healthy.
When you're on the DevOps portal over here, there's no easy way to get back to here, is there?
Not as far as I know.
No.
Yeah.
Shame. All right, cool.
All right, so let's test out our app real quick.
So you want me to click on this?
Yep, just open it up.
Done. There it is.
Wonderful success. We've got a new project deployed to Azure via Azure DevOps. So that's pretty cool. I think one thing that people are interested in is to see app insights. So if we just go back to the Azure DevOps project, go back one more.
Do you think we're going to have any bugs?
No, no bugs. Hi.
Can you please show how to go to DevOps projects? So I'm on Azure Portal, and how to go to these projects.
Okay, the question was, how
Is
can
it
we
working?
Go, excuse me? The microphone, yes, it's working. The question is, how do we get to the Azure DevOps project from the beginning? If you just logged into Azure, how do you get to the Azure DevOps project? So let's start by clicking on Home. So this will be, once you've logged in, this is where you'll end up. The easiest way to get there is to click on the resource groups. And if you know which resource group you're interested in, you can find it in the list here. And ours is the Northwind Sydney DevOps resource group. And this shows the resources that we deployed from this project. We actually need to go back one more because it's in a different place. It's got a strange name, which you can actually change in the additional project settings when you create Azure DevOps. We skipped that step, but there it is. So we can actually click on the Northwind Sydney DevOps project, and here's our dashboard. Okay.
Excellent.
Fantastic. So now we want to just add a little bit more automation. We actually want to add a second stage to our environment. So we've got a development environment. Now, for instance, we can have another testing or production environment. So I'm going to get Adam to go back to the Azure DevOps project homepage.
Okay, this guy.
Yeah, that's the one. And our builds, outputs, the artifact, we deploy that to our dev environment. We've done some testing in there. We're happy to then ship that to our staging environment. We're going to reuse the exact same artifact and push that to staging. So first we need to create the whole new environment for staging. You click on pipelines and then go to releases, because this is where we can create a new staging environment. And that's part of our pipeline. Unfortunately, the button's hidden, so you just click on the ellipses again, click edit. So as you remember, here is our dev stage. So it's very easy to just clone the stage and create a new one called staging. So for Adam, I think you hover over the stage, there should be a clone button. If you move down, the clone button on the right, yes. Click that. And so now it's a copy of dev. If you click on it, you can just change the name to staging. Cool. And you can close that. I think it actually needs an OK or save button there instead. Okay, and what we want to do is to go and just modify some of the settings in our release pipeline or for the stage to point to a different app service. So if you click on that link there, yes. On the Azure deployment step, if you scroll down and override our parameters from before, that one, yep. So click on the ellipses on the right here. We actually just want to change the web app name. We want to reuse the same server for this example, but you can actually deploy it to a separate server if you wish. But for this one, we're going to just add -staging to the app service name. Fantastic. And click OK. And I think we have one more change to make. If you choose on the Deploy Azure App Service task, scroll up a little bit, we need to say the name of the app service that we are going to deploy our code to. And you just have to add -staging to that one as well. Fantastic. So actually, we didn't cover the step earlier. This Deploy Azure App Service step takes our artifact, which contains the output from the build process, and that's what's going to get deployed to our app service. So just to recap, the first step was to create the app service in Azure, and then the second step is to deploy the code to it. All right, so now what we need to do is click Save at the top. Okay, we should add, as good developers, some notes saying what we did, and we created a new staging environment. All right. Now, you happy?
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
happy. Yep. I'll
Sweet.
be happy when I see it run.
When you see it running. All right, so now the way to kick off a release in Azure DevOps, you can do it either from the Releases tab, if you click on the release link there. And so, yeah, I think because we've zoomed in, the buttons are hidden, but they're in the ellipses there. You can create a new release. And from this UI, you can choose which environments you want to release. Now, we've already got a dev environment, but we don't want to redeploy that for this example. So you can actually disable the dev environment by clicking on the dev tab. So if we wanted to redeploy the dev environment, we have to do it manually. So just, yep, untick that. You don't need to click anything there. We can specify which artifact to deploy here. So currently we only have one, but if you have multiple artifacts, they're kept for you via the build process. So you can choose to even roll back to an older version from this screen. So if you just click on the drop down there, I think we only got one artifact. Yep. All right, so we can have a description here for our release. We can say their first staging release by Adam Kogan.
Don't we have to untick that tab? Why is that tab?
So it's just ticked because it's selected for manual, to be kicked off manually. Okay? Yeah, click create, thank you. So now we can see there that release-2 has been queued. And now we see there's two stages displayed in the UI, dev and staging. Our very first release, it did not have a staging environment. So we can click on release 2, or you can click on the shortcut link at the top of the screen. And because staging can only be deployed after dev has been deployed, and we disabled dev from automatically being deployed, we manually have to deploy staging, just for this example. But in a normal scenario, you'd commit some code, your CI pipeline would build this code, then the CD pipeline would kick in, start deploying to dev, and then to staging. In between these two stages, you can actually have some gates, so that someone like Adam or a project manager, someone has to approve the deployment to the next stage. But we can show you that a little bit later. For now, if you just click on staging, the staging bit there, now you can see you can deploy it manually, or there's a deploy button at the top, and click on deploy stage. Okay, now it wants some more info, but you can just click OK or deploy. Now it's in progress. So now we're deploying a staging environment. and it'll go through, get queued, and when a build agent is ready, it will start executing the tasks, deploy it to Azure. Yes, we've got a question.
Why didn't we deploy the release 1 to, why didn't we promote it to staging? Like why have we have to create a release 2 for it?
So the question is, why don't we promote it from dev into staging?
Yeah.
Well, we haven't actually created anything yet. We had just one environment. So we needed to create a second environment called staging. We had no process before.
Yeah, but we could have created an environment and then promoted release 1 to the staging environment.
Okay, sorry. Yes, so just to recap, we could have promoted it, but we did not have a staging environment in the very first release. We had to create the staging environment first, and then we can promote it from one to the next. And if you can have many more after this. It just does take quite a long time, so it's hard to show that example all in one go. Okay?
So I think we've showed pretty much
We've
everything.
showed everything, yeah.
What's in the repos and what's in the builds and what's in the releases.
Yeah.
Add an extra release. So let's go back
That's it, yeah.
and
Fantastic.
recap this. So what Will got me to do was create an Azure DevOps project, okay, to satisfy Mr. DevOps. We created the resource, we selected DevOps, we followed a simple wizard this time, clicked done, and we had an environment. Let's click through that. So we create a resource, select DevOps, saw the DevOps project, click that, read some stuff here. I think that Microsoft should understand no one's ever going to read this stuff. So what they should do is change that to just be this, okay? And then you see that, and then you press create, and then you come in here. Now, we could choose Java or Node, but we chose .NET, and then we press next. Then you choose ASP or ASP.NET Core. We chose ASP.NET Core. Had we chosen ASP and tried to go forward, it comes up with a bit of a warning. It says, warning, ASP.NET is a legacy service. You must be 40 years or over to use this service. And then you press next. No. So we're going to choose ASP.NET Core. And then we press next. So choose that. And this, as you saw, since our screenshots were done, the default has changed from web app to Kubernetes. We will talk about Kubernetes later. Kubernetes.
Kubernetes? Kubernetes?
I'm not Greek enough. I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Okay, so we chose web app, the simplest option for a new developer to Azure like Jason, and we press next. Obviously, containers are the way to go long term, but we'll talk about that. So we went in here, and Will got me to create a new DevOps project because we're forgetting everything that we did before. We came in here, gave it a name, scrolled down, chose pricing tier, chose a location, then pressed done. A big spinning thing did not exist, but we waited subtly while it was finished. And when it was all finished, we got a little button, go to resource. When we click go to resource, we then saw our resource here. And that showed us that we had the code, the build, the dev, the resources, application insights. It did everything that a mature organization in the past took some time to get to. Sometimes many sprints before they were at this point. So this is kind of a pretty awesome automated first experience for a modern developer.
It's a game changer.
Yep. So we see that. We saw our resources. We clicked on that to see it was deployed. Will then got me to go through this and customize it. So we had build, dev, staging, and people have lots of different environments in their company. And then you can see the repository, and you can see the application insights over here. Obviously, this site is not being smashed, but if it was and errors were coming, you'd see red, and you'd go, hang on a sec, let's fix the bug before doing any new work. All right, so what that did in the past was if we click code, we would see this portal, okay? But this portal, this screenshot was taken some months ago, and this portal was the old portal. The new and improved portal looks like this. Let me just go back. That's what it was. This is what it is. The main thing you can see differently is down the left-hand side, we have boards and repos and pipelines. And this is kind of made, a lot of the changes that were made was because Microsoft wanted you to be able to plug and play easier. If you want to use boards, repos, and Octopus, they make it easy for you. If you want to use just the boards, it's easier and you could use TeamCity and something else. Most clients that come to SSW, they're fully on board with all of this. But there's plenty of companies with lots of different pieces and it can work just nicely. Even, like obviously, a lot of people that just do GitHub still use this for all the builds. This is the best system for doing that. And obviously, companies that are quite mature with testing teams, the test story here is pretty mature. And they've also got exploratory test and lots of other cool stuff. So that's that. I just pointed out that you got your pipelines and the names are a little different as I mentioned. The repositories over here is repos here. The build pipelines and release pipelines over on the left is pipelines. There's a few differences. They should clean that up and use the same lingo everywhere. All right, so yeah, I think those two red squares should be consistent. So let's move on. There's one other thing that, like our discussion then, Will spent time looking at the repositories and the pipelines and modifying the releases. He didn't look at the work items at all. I consider that an oversight, and the reason that he didn't look at it was because it was empty. And I consider that this DevOps project is amazing, except not amazing because they don't have a record here. Everybody should only do work when there is a PBI. Okay, maybe I'm putting my Scrum Master hat on here, but this should have a PBI here, and that, my suggestion to Microsoft, which I have sent before, is it should say something like, create the application, use the cool new DevOps project. And the state should be completed and it should be associated to that commit that you just did, because there's only one commit in this application. That is what a good Scrum team would do. Anyway, it's a small thing to point out. So in summary, I think that was pretty awesome. The pipeline now has some basic safety gates. You can customize the pipeline as we just did. You can track the backlog and bugs. You can essentially now purchase some DevOps from Microsoft, which is kind of a joke because a lot of the industry didn't like Microsoft using the word DevOps because it's like a generic thing, but now it's a tool. Anyway, but the important thing for Jason is getting up and running. He didn't do much. He just created that project and got coding. And so he can concentrate on his code and not do much. The only thing I can think of as a downside is you don't see that this is using on every single DevOps project, every single Azure project, such as Logic Apps and others. So the verdict is Dr. DevOps Award. This is, like Doctor makes you seem more mature. You should definitely put DevOps on your LinkedIn profile, makes you seem cooler. And the final thing you can do is go back and visit this guy and say, thanks, Mr. DevOps. Your services are no longer required in our company because you were just replaced by a 4-step wizard. All right. Awesome.
Raj has got a question. Okay, so the question was, is there an integration between Azure DevOps and Jira, which is also used by a lot of companies? And there is an integration that is a little bit old. Apparently it doesn't work too well. If you want to get it to work, it's going to be a lot of work that you have to put into it to make it sort of work. Jira is notoriously hard to integrate into Azure DevOps. Yeah.
Yeah, but the reality is, plenty of our customers use Jira.
Yeah.
And they use DevOps, and they make it work. But there's a couple of extra manual steps, so it's just not as nice as We're hoping that Atlassian will give a nice connector, because obviously this is getting more and more. It's just a matter of time.